welcome to Into the Night, a 5 Nights at Freddy's podcast. I'm your host, Nick, and thank you for listening. For our first episode, I don't want to jump straight in. Instead, I'd like to go over what this podcast will be and what I intend to accomplish with it. I'll be going over what I plan to cover and what plans I have for the future of it, as well as a bit about me and why I chose to create this podcast. This is episode 1, an introduction. Now, before I get into what this podcast will be, I would appreciate it if you could help answer a question for me. Can you close your eyes? You don't have to if you wish, but it will help. My question to you is this. What is the first thing you think of when you hear 5 Nights at Freddy's? There's no wrong answer, just whatever it is, the first thing that pops in your head. For those of you who clicked on this podcast because you knew what 5 Nights at Freddy's was, you were probably imagining the jump scares, the tension-filled gameplay, or perhaps even the animatronic characters of the series. For those of you who clicked on it and knew the bare minimum, you probably imagined those old YouTube videos of Markiplier and Jacksepticeye playing the game back in 2014. Or perhaps the animations and memes that went viral. Some people, when they hear the name of 5 Nights at Freddy's, will think of YouTube animations and fan arts. They remember watching game theory videos done by MatPat trying to explain the game's intricate lore, to say the least. Or perhaps they'll think of the man who started it all, Scott Cawthon, who went from an independent game developer nobody knew to a man with a multi-million-dollar franchise. All because someone criticized his characters in a kid-friendly game as terrifying animatronics. But for me, whenever I have a fleeting thought of the series, the first thing that comes to my head isn't the gameplay, the audio, or the tension. No. It was always the story. Not just the lore, not just the world building, the whole package. The stories, events, and characters that play out in this franchise. 5 Nights at Freddy's was an unexpected hit when the first game came out. A small horror game about a night guard stuck inside a Chuck E. Cheese knockoff restaurant during the closing hours, only to find the animatronic band comes to life at night and attempts to capture you, kill you, and stuff you into one of those robotic mascot costumes. And yet, even after 7 years, it has still retained a large audience and has continuously expanded its size, scope, and story. There's always been a love for the series for its gameplay. Its unique setup and design had defied a genre and created its own form of contradictory gameplay that worked wonders to create a horror atmosphere. The evolution the series has gone through, from being stuck in one room to being able to directly interact with your environment in virtual reality. It has always been a series that has never been scared of trying something new. The series has equally acquired infamy for its lore, the background, world-building events, and people that lead up to the horror scenarios the game has put you in. In its first incarnation, the series gave information about its lore like a puzzle, encouraging experimentation and exploration in tiny details. Now it has professional voice actors bringing its characters to life, real-world alternate reality games, and overall became more direct with its mysteries. FNAF has also always been a franchise renowned for its ability to start discussions. And really, it's that story that I want to bring more light to with this podcast. In a series that I have fallen in love with and stuck with ever since I started my first night at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it truly disappoints me that the community of fans I'm a part of are so focused on lore and technicalities, never truly appreciating what the story is trying to say, appreciating how it's written, what characters represent, and how the series itself has all become interwoven. Now, it isn't the fault of the community for focusing on the lore, nor can fault be attributed to anyone who focuses on that aspect of the series. It can be argued that the discussion of the lore is one of the primary reasons the series had remained relevant, even the moment where the series was in a dry spell of content and new ideas. That said, I think it's a disservice to not show appreciation for the story being told. I know this franchise is infamous for its ability to confuse newcomers. What I hope to accomplish here is to provide an entertaining deep dive into the narrative of 5 Nights at Freddy. Go over the overarching plots, analyze characters, and dive deeper in the story into all aspects. While there are many online personalities already who dissect the lore, gameplay, or design of the series, I have yet to see anyone go over the story in the same way. With that said, I think it's appropriate now to elaborate on what my plans are for this podcast. While the story and storytelling tricks that series creator Scott Cawthon will be the most precedent topic of the series, my plan is to go deeper than most when it comes to the character's story and world. My first 3 episodes will be an introduction of sorts to the series' main storyline, breaking down each story into its respective eras, allowing anyone who starts the series or is new to this franchise to be able to understand the plot without having to go through half a dozen horror games to get there. After which, I like to do a deep dive of the main characters in the series, analyzing their personalities, backgrounds, and symbolism, and breaking down their stories and interpretations they've garnered over the years. I'll be talking about the mere symbolism that William and Michael Afton have as both father and son, and overarching antagonists and protagonists, respectively. While characters like Circus Baby and Fun and Freddy play such an intrinsic role in the series and how their backgrounds put the series' original story into a different perspective, as well as the meaning behind certain stylized choices and the reasoning behind certain aspects of symbolism throughout the franchise. I do this not just to understand the story that is known for being too cryptic for its own good, but to also appreciate the writing that went behind it. The stylistic choice in how FNAF is presented, its story, its topics, it's worth a podcast alone. This podcast is to give the actual writing, the way it's presented, appreciation, and better understanding. I want people to understand the characters and feel what it's like to live in this dark world. Beyond that better understanding of the story, beyond the appreciation for its characters, I want to pull back and explain, well, just why so many people still indulge and to continue to enjoy the story of Five Nights at Freddy's. The series has caused a lot of closed-minded thoughts amongst detractors, and I want to show why to so many people like me, they've stuck with and have found enjoyment in this series. See, I've always enjoyed horror as a medium. Tension and dread are fantastic story-writing elements. It's great to cause engagement in an audience or build tension in a story. And I think that Five Nights at Freddy's has always been successful in doing that. I wouldn't have been a fan since the first game release if I didn't think the series was something special. And I guess we have circled back to my original point, in that seeing the series as something special, I just want to bring some of that appreciation and excitement to others. I'm super excited to get into the story, but that's for another episode. And with that, I think we have reached the end of this one. Thank you all for listening, and I'm very excited for the future of this podcast. Next episode, we'll be going over the story of the first 3 games in the series, from Five Nights at Freddy's 1 to 3. It's important to go over this trilogy as it will be the foundation of the world and events that will soon blossom this dark universe. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like it and share it with others, as it does help us on our end. I'm going to try my best to also make this podcast available on any platform which you can listen to podcasts, so be sure to keep an eye out for us if we currently don't reside on your current podcast platform. Once again, I have been your host, Nick, and thank you once again for listening. Have a good night.